Okay, so this is a video I've been meaning to make for a while now. I've just been busy with the holidays and work and whatnot, but this video is long overdue, okay? And it's going to be a very long video, so sit down, grab a snack, get comfortable because we're going to be here for a while. This is a video where I'm going to talk to you, tell you guys we're going to go on a journey together. We're going to talk about The Last of Us. Not just The Last of Us Part 2, The Last of Us as a whole. The whole series, Part 1 and Part 2. We're going to talk about my stance on Part 2 and all of the awards they won and just my overall where I stand, because Last of Us Part 2 is without a doubt the most controversial game in the history of gaming, period. Like, I can't think of any other game that quite literally divided the entire community, divided the internet. Like, I thought Kingdom Hearts 3 divided the... No! Last of Us 2's like, here, hold my beer. So, to really emphasize how big of a fan I am of The Last of Us, I'm gonna explain to you my experience with Part 1 and everything leading up to Part 2 and my disastrous experience streaming the game live on Twitch before, during, and after. And then we'll come right here, okay? So strap on in! I remember when they first announced The Last of Us back at the Video Game Awards when they used to air on TV, and I was immediately hooked, and I mean immediately, because I was a big fan of Naughty Dog, a big fan of Uncharted. Like, I believe fresh off the heels of Uncharted 2, they announced The Last of Us. I'm just like, Naughty Dog's making a zombie game? Hell yeah, sign me up! So Uncharted 3 comes out, and I didn't really like it, but I knew The Last of Us was coming out, and every single trailer of this game had me hyped. I was just like, this is the next bit, this is the next big thing, man. This is going to be the next big thing from Naughty Dog that's going to change everything. So the game comes out, and I buy a day. I went to the launch day, the midnight launch of the game. I come home, play it, and I fall in love, man. The graphics, the gameplay, the story, the characters. I love everything about the game. I am such a big fan of Part 1. The only thing I don't like is the ending. Which, spoiler alert, oh yeah, I forgot to say that. This whole video will have spoilers of the ending of Part 1 and Part 2. And just also, if you haven't played the game, this is your warning, okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You still here? Okay. The ending to Part 1 where Joel just changes his mind. He's like, we're gonna go on this grand adventure cross country. We get to our destination, and I'm like, nope, fuck that. And I hated that. I'm like, that to me is like replaying the game makes everything pointless. Like, when you replay The Last of Us and you know how it's gonna end, I'm like, all of these people I'm killing, all these things I'm going through is for nothing. So I hated that. A lot of my friends disagree, but that's just my stance on it. But literally everything, I mean everything else, man. The story, the voice acting, just Last of Us Part 1 has the best story in video game history. Arguably the best story in anything, books, movies, TV. I mean, I can't think of any other game that just had that perfect of a story. I can't. It's like the relationship between Joel and Ellie, I loved. I mean, yeah, it was a generic, oh, they hate each other and then they love each other towards the end, but the journey that they go through, how they get to that point, and the interactions they have with each other, the fact that you can go on different paths, and they have optional conversations with each other that build the characters more. Just, I love that, man. I freaking loved it. Without a doubt. That best story I wanna say like one of the best games also. When people list the top 5 best games of all times, more than likely Last of Us Part 1 will be on there because it's that good of a game. And so after the game is done, there is the DLC that comes out, and I bought that, played that, loved it. It was rather short, but I loved it. I just grew to a liking to Ellie. Like, I fell in love with Ellie, man. She was a tomboy, you know? Like, I love the fact that if I was younger and Ellie was a real life person, we would get along so well. She loves space, she loves comics, she loves video games, she loves all this shit. I'm like, you and I will get along so well together, Ellie. And the voice actor of Ellie, I'm also a big fan of. She voiced Tara in Teen Titans, and I love that show. So Ellie overall is a character that is arguably my favorite female video game character ever. I love her that much. So then I believe not too long after the Left Behind DLC came out, then they came out with Grounded mode for The Last of Us Part 1, and I did it. This is like, I wanted to platinum the game, and I believe I already did at that point, but I only had 2 trophies left, which was finish Grounded mode twice. And ladies and gentlemen, I did that. It took me probably up to 3 months or so. It is without a doubt, to this very day, the hardest challenge I've ever gone through as a gamer. Like, this Grounded mode will test you. Grounded mode will make you throw your controller, bust your TV, burn your house down of just pure anger, man. It is so difficult that I believe that only like 1 or 2% of all Last of Us players actually did this, and I'm proud to say I'm one of that 1 or 2%. Actually, no. Rewind. I think Last of Us Part 1 is the hardest game I've ever had to platinum. It's just, that's what I mean, like, only like 1 or 2% of players actually 100% completed Last of Us Part 1. Because, my god, man, not only is Grounded mode difficult, the multiplayer trophies, man. The multiplayer trophies. This can be a whole separate video of the multiplayer and Grounded mode trophies, man. My god, it's just, it took me almost a full year. 1 whole year, close to 1 whole year to get all the trophies for multiplayer. And it was a grueling, agonizing, painful experience. Shout out to my friend Steven Lance. He was my partner. He played the entire session with me. And God, I'm never platinuming a game that has multiplayer trophies ever. But at the same time though, the reason why I'm doing all of that is because I love the game, man. It's like, if I love this game, I want to 100% platinum it. And that just goes to show you that I'm willing to torture myself mentally and physically, emotionally, to get a goddamn fictional trophy because I love the game that much. And then the PS4 came out, and they ported Last of Us Part 1 to the PS4, and which also meant all the trophies got ported over to the PS4. And guess what? I had to do Grounded mode again, 2 more times. So I played Grounded mode, the hardest challenge in the entire game. Not once, not twice, not 3, but 4 times. 4. Again, because I love the game that much. Granted, by the 3rd or 4th time, I pretty much adjusted to the difficulty, and I memorized everything to a pattern, and it's actually not that hard for me anymore. So after I complete the game for a 2nd time, It's just I'm playing these other games, but in the back of my mind, I'm just like, I really, please make Last of Us 2. Please make Last of Us 2. Please make Last of Us 2, man. I haven't been this excited for a game since Kingdom Hearts 3. And you all already know I'm a big Kingdom Hearts fan. I was super hyped for Kingdom Hearts 3, but right below that was The Last of Us Part 2. So needless to say, when they announced The Last of Us Part 2 at the PlayStation Experience, people. Also, I want to note that I was in the audience. I forget what year, I forget what PlayStation Experience year this was, but I was in the audience. The entire room goes black, they show the trailer, and they show the Firefly symbol, and everyone just erupts and screams. The entire time I was on my feet, I was standing on my chair, with fist bumping in the air, screaming at the top of my lungs. When I saw Ellie, when I saw Joel, and the whole screen cuts to black and they say Last of Us Part 2, I lost it, man. I was walking around the entire convention like, oh my god, Last of Us Part 2! Oh my god, Last of Us Part 2! I was going insane. The biggest smile on my face. So after that, The Last of Us Part 2 was my most highly anticipated game ever at that point. By this point, Kingdom Hearts 3 was about to come out. It came out, I loved it, but then next up was The Last of Us Part 2. It's like every E3, every press conference, I was just like, show anything Last of Us, please. And when they did show us new gameplay of The Last of Us Part 2, I was just blown away by everything, man. It's like everything I loved about Part 1, they accentuated in Part 2, man. I was beyond excited. I did notice something funny, though. The very first red flag was the fact that Joel wasn't in the trailers that much. I was just like, huh. Now, the gameplay and everything looks amazing, but I'm like, where's Joel? It's like most of the time you see Ellie, they did announce that you play as Ellie the whole time. And I'm like, cool, I love Ellie, bring it on, awesome. But then every single trailer we got after that, the Joel is in like one trailer. Because what got me the most excited was the fact that as good of a game as Part 1 is, Last of Us Part 1, it was a side project, man. That was not Naughty Dog's main focus. It's like one half Last of Us Part 1, other half Uncharted 3. But now and look how good Part 1 is. Now imagine if all of the developers are focusing on Last of Us Part 2. Everybody, they're putting all of their talents, all their effort into this game. So if a side project is this good, imagine how good the main product is going to be. That's what got me the most excited. So here begins the first grueling task of The Last of Us Part 2. And that was leading up to the game's release. Because, unfortunately, the game got leaked. Alright? The game got leaked, and it is probably the darkest day of 2020, because my god, people were furious. People were furious. People were angry. People were just like, I can only imagine what like Neil Druckmann and everyone at Naughty Dog had to go through, because spoiler alert, Joel dies. And it's like, I don't know how it got leaked, but it got leaked that this woman, at this point we had no idea who Abby was, but all we know is that she kills Joel, and apparently people thought that Ellie was going to get killed also, so they were just saying, oh, Joel and Ellie dies, and thankfully before the game came out, no one spoiled it for me, but I avoided it like the plague, because when I am excited for a game, I look at 1 or 2 trailers and that's it. For Kingdom Hearts 3, for God of War 4, every single trailer after the initial, like, showing off the gameplay. Once I decide that I want to buy the game, I stop watching all trailers. I do the same thing for movies. Like, I'm already convinced, guys. You don't need to convince me anymore. So I avoided all the spoilers, And the people who did see the spoilers, they weren't happy at all, man. They were angry. Thankfully, they didn't tell me the spoilers, but the ones who did tell me, the ones who did see it, they were just like, Mel, this is not the direction we were hoping they would go. I was just like, I don't care, it's fine. I'm gonna like it. The game will be awesome. It's Last of Us Part 2. It's Naughty Dog. It's gonna be so good. It's gonna be so much fun. I'm gonna love the game, yeah! Poor naive Mo. So I avoided, I tried my best to avoid all spoilers, which thankfully wasn't too hard. It's just, my god, it's like, I was just like, why is everyone so angry? I figured more than likely, I'm like, there's no way they're gonna kill Ellie, maybe Joel, but I'm just like, someone's gonna die. Somebody's gonna die. I don't know who, but somebody's going to die. So I went into the game basically expecting that. So then they released another trailer where they show the story. And after watching this trailer, I did a reaction video on this trailer. That's how excited I was for it. And it got me to thinking, like, so the story is going to be Ellie gets a girlfriend, they go on a mission, they run into people, they kill Ellie's girlfriend, and then she goes on a quest with Joel to hunt down her killers for revenge. I'm like, cool, awesome story. Poor naive Mo. So then the game comes out in June, and I take off a whole week from work to play this game, man. The hype levels were way high, man. So the game finally comes out. I wake up early, speed over to GameStop, buy the game, speed back home, and go live on Twitch for the very first time playing the game. And I am just me and my audience were having streaming The Last of Us Part 2 is my favorite experience of 2020. Me and my audience, we went on a journey together. And it was just nice experience, the highs and lows together. And unfortunately, the next major bad thing happened for me. I was streaming the game, okay? I was streaming the game, and I got to that part. And you know what part I'm talking about. And right before that part happens, a troll comes in and spoils the entire game for me. Like, he comes in and says, I made it to where only people who follow me will be able to, like, talk in chat. But this troll went above and beyond and put spoilers in his profile name. So when he clicks follow, the follower alert displays the entire spoiler. But the guy was blocked, and ever since at that point on, I turned off all alerts, and I turned off the follower text. Like when someone follows and says blankly blank follows, I turned that off too. So that ruined the entire. I mean, I'm not gonna say ruined it, but it's just like when they told me this spoiler, in the back of my mind, I'm just like, no way. No, I refuse to believe that. I was just like, okay, Joel dies, whatever, but Ellie? No, you are not about to kill Ellie, Neil Druckmann. Joel maybe, but the two of the characters that we fell in love with in part 1, like we were excited for 7 years to spend time with Joel and Ellie, these two characters that we fell in love with. So to find this out, I'm like, no! No! So after that part ends, I get angry. It's like, this random girl, literally out of nowhere, comes and kills Joel, and I'm like, fuck you! I'm gonna hunt you down, tear off your arms, and slap you in the face with it! Like, I wanted to kill this character. I was angry towards her. And I'm like, okay, so this is why the game is about hate. Okay, cool. Okay, Neil Druckmann, I like that. Okay, I am on board with the story. So Ellie goes on this quest to hunt down Abby, and right off the bat, I don't like Dina. I don't. It's like, I have nothing against the actor that plays her. She seems like a very cool person. I feel like we would get along just fine. But the character of Dina is just there, you know? Like, she's basically the Yamcha of the group. She doesn't she's just there, doesn't really contribute much to the story, and no one would really care if she disappeared. You know what? No, a better example. She's basically the Walt Jr. from Breaking Bad. Like a character that's just there. You know what I mean? Like she's not. She's just in the background, like, "Hi, I'm here." I just, nah, I get what they were doing. Like Ellie is basically Joel now, the strict, stern, no nonsense character, and Dina was the silly goofball, and it just didn't work for me at all. Although I will say that scene where Ellie is singing to Dina, magic. I love that scene so much. So my first day of streaming this game, I streamed for 7 hours, okay? 7 straight hours. We get to this point in the game where it's basically the breath of the wild of us, where they just drop you in this massive open world area and are like, do whatever you want, explore, do whatever. And I wish there was more sections like that in the game, man. I loved it. I'm like, oh, I can go here and do this, I can go there and do that. And not every player will have a different experience in this area. Because I was talking with a friend, and I'm like, wasn't that area cool? They're like, yeah, it was cool. This happened to me. I'm like, what? I didn't see that. And I love that, man. I feel like Part 2 was originally going to be a open world game, and I feel like it would have been better if it was. So after my first playthrough of the game, I'm loving it, don't get me wrong, it's just, it doesn't feel like The Last of Us to me. After playing Part 1 for so many years, platinuming the game twice, I was just like, I'm so used to Part 1 that Part 2 seems a little half-assed so far. Like, I know I was still super early in the game, but so far it just didn't really feel like The Last of Us to me. But I was just excited to see where this game was going, how this game is going to end, like what it has in store for me. That's what I was most excited for. So I play the game some more. I'm playing it some more. And honestly, I didn't really like Ellie's playthrough because the characters like Dina and Jesse I didn't really care for. Joel died. I'm like, it doesn't... The Last of Us is Joel and Ellie. Joel and Ellie. When you get rid of Joel and it's just Ellie, she can't carry the scene herself, man. Like, when you make a Jak and Daxter game, it has to be Jak and Daxter, not just Jak, although they did make a game of him, but it's not really, it's obviously a spin-off, but it's like how can I say it? A mainline game in a series of The Last of Us is Joel and Ellie. So when you get rid of one character, it's not The Last of Us. It just isn't. Also, I just didn't like how much of a monster Ellie was, man. Like, the Ellie to me was the silly, funny, goofball tomboy. And in the first playthrough, Ellie's a fucking monster. She's a bloodthirsty, homicidal maniac. And granted, I'm on her side. I'm like, these people that killed Joel, you're all about to get fucked by Ellie. And when Ellie is killing these people, I'm like, yeah, Ellie, go! But then when you see Ellie all, like, sad and crying and broken, I'm like, I don't want to see you like this, girl. I don't want to see you go through this. I legit felt sorry for her, and I hated seeing her go through all that. Little did I know this was just the beginning. So I'm playing more of Ellie's part, and there's some pretty cool scenes and stuff. But then we get to the halfway point where we bump into Abby. And I'm scared, I'm freaking out, and then we cut to Abby. And this, to me, is the biggest reason. I mean, I guess it's not everyone will agree with this. This is why a lot of people hate this game. Because Neil is asking the players to do something we really don't want to do. That no director, no game company has the balls to do. Where you force us, the player, to play as a character we hate. I give him props for having the balls to do that, but initially, it's like I didn't want to play. I was just like, why you make me do this? Like, I hate this bitch. Why? So, but I'm like, obviously I'll keep playing because I'm like, I know what they're trying to do, man. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to make me see things from her perspective. Show how she is actually the good. Like, there is no villain here. Abby's actually the good guy, basically. But at that point in time, I'm like, no, Abby's a villain in my eyes. I'm like, I don't care what her reasoning is for killing Joel. It does not justify her actions at all. And then the plot twist happens. The plot twist. This is, without a doubt, one of the biggest plot twists I have ever experienced. I mean, it's up there with like The Sixth Sense, and cause this is a plot twist that I did not see coming at all. That just shattered my entire perception of The Last of Us Part 2. And that plot twist was that doctor that you kill in Part 1 is Abby's father. And I was just like, oh shit! It all makes sense now! That made sense, man. And then they fast forward to when Abby kills Joel, and I'm like, oh, wow. That I give you props for that, Neil Druckmann. Good job. That concept never even occurred to me at all. So I like that. That's a plot twist that I like. A lot of players did not like it, but me personally, I liked it. Not gonna lie. But does that justify Abby's actions? To me, it does. I'm sorry. It's like, I don't really care about Abby or her father, but her reasoning made sense to me. So then we play as Abby, and all the characters that Ellie kills, you interact with, and surprise, surprise, they're actually good people! I started liking those characters more than the characters in Ellie's playthrough. And then Abby started getting better weapons and better story beats. I'm like, oh my god. You mean to tell me they saved all the best weapons, best characters, best story aspects in Abby's playthrough just to get us to forgive her? Like, the whole thing with, what's his name, Lev, the person that Abby is hanging out with, every scene where they're together, now it feels like The Last of Us. This adult with a child. And it felt more like The Last of Us to me. And that was done on purpose. I guarantee you that was done on purpose. I hate the fact that it's working. At the beginning of the game, I was just like, I hate Abby, I'm gonna burn her alive, I hate her, yada yada. Then I play as her, and I end up liking her more than Ellie. Why, Neil? Why you gotta do this to me, man? Why? It's very conflicting opinions for me. So the more I play in Abby's section of the game, the more I'm liking the game. She has more boss fights, her weapons are better, the characters I like more. I like Lev, the way Abby and Lev interact with each other. I liked it. I loved everything about it. It got to a point where I started siding with Abby more than Ellie. I'm like, ugh. It's like, from Abby's perspective, you see all the people that Ellie murdered. Granted, the pregnant chick killing was on accident, but still, it's just, I'm like, if Abby kills Ellie, she is fully justified, man. I'm like, because Abby could have killed her when he killed Joel, but she didn't. She let her live. And now she's not going to make that mistake again. So when it got to that part, and by the way, everything leading up to Ellie and Abby crossing paths again, that boss fight with Abby in that village that was on fire, wow. All I gotta say is wow. That whole scene was amazing. Playing as Abby, you learn that Abby is actually a good person. It's like, she let Ellie live, and she ran into the enemy, Lev and his sister, and she helped them. Like, when she let them go in that trailer, she didn't have to go back for them, but she did, because she cared about their safety. And I'm just like, Ellie would have murdered them and moved on. Like, here's a prime example of how badly they're trying to make you like Abby more. Every single time Ellie interacts with a dog, she brutally murders the dog. Every single time Abby interacts with the dog, she's playing fetch with it, petting it, loving it. So it's just the small things like that is just, they're trying so hard to get us to care for Abby. And for me, they succeeded. A lot of players, they did not. A lot of players did not. Even after walking a mile in her shoe, they just can't forgive her at all. So then comes the part that I was dreading. Like, I will never forget this moment streaming the game when Abby is going to confront Ellie. And I was scared, man. I was shaking. I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want Ellie to die. I don't want to kill Ellie, no. So we get to that part, and I'm like, so we get to that part, and I'm like, wait, I'm playing as Abby, trying to kill Ellie? No, I don't want to do that. No, 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 no. The entire time I'm playing the game, beating the shit out of Ellie, I'm like, no, stop it, no, I don't want to do this, no. And then that whole scene happens, and Abby lets Ellie live again. Like, Abby could have killed Ellie right then and there. She had the power to, but she didn't. And I just think that goes to show you the type of person that Abby is. Like, after everything, like, after Ellie killed her friends and a woman that was pregnant, even though it was an accident, Abby let her go. It's like, Abby is a better person in terms of mentality, I guess, than Ellie. Because if you kill any of Ellie's friends, you're fucking dead. But if you kill Abby's friends, 50-50 chance she'll let you live after she beats the fuck out of you. So then I'm thinking, okay, this is where the game ends. 10 hours with Ellie, 10 hours with Abby, the game's over. Now Ellie is living on a farm with Dina, everything's peaceful, everything's fine. But then the game keeps going. And I'm like, wait, there's more? The game isn't over yet? What? I'm like, how long is this game? So fast forwarding all the way to the ending of part 2, the second biggest thing, in my opinion, that gamers hate about part 2 is the fact that Ellie let Abby live. And at first, I was disappointed, but to be honest, I wasn't surprised. Because again, they did this before. Remember in part 1 when they had a objective, the entire game they had this objective, they get to their objective and then they give up at the very end? It's like, it's a common theme now in the Last of Us series. If they ever make a part 3, I guarantee you they will do the exact same thing. They will have one goal, one objective, they'll get there, and they will not accomplish it at the very last second. I hate it, I don't like it, but I'm not surprised. People are like, oh, then what was the point of this entire game, killing all these people, if she doesn't kill Abby? I'm like, now you see how I felt about part 1. What was the point of killing all those people in part 1 to get to the hospital, only for him to give up at the very end? Another thing I want to mention that I personally did not like at all is just seeing Ellie turn into a monster. At the very end of the game, when she's like trying to kill Abby, amazing scenes in terms of cinematography, but I'm just like, no, Ellie, no, what are you doing? Like when she's choking Abby and stuff, it's like, I was screaming, kill Abby, yeah, but that was for show. But rewatching the scene, I'm like, I don't like seeing you like this, Ellie, I don't. Like, I like the Ellie in part 1 more, where you're just a goofball, silly, funny girl, and now you're a lunatic, a homicidal maniac that I don't recognize anymore. And to see her just broken like that, it tore me apart, man. That's the one thing about part 2 that I hate the most. The fact that these characters that I love are either dead or broken or destroyed. They're not recognizable to me. The fact that I can't recognize them at all anymore, I hate that. I hate that. So, at the end of the day, Abby gets a happy ending, Ellie doesn't. Abby goes to the Fireflies and lives a happy life. Ellie can't play guitar anymore, and she lost everything. Her girlfriend, her baby, her house, Tommy, Jesse, Joel, everything is just destroyed. And I'm just like, is that the end? Is granted, I like the ending more than part 1, but I'm just like, it was not a happy ending. I ended the game sad, man. I ended part 1 confused, but I ended part 2 sad. What it boils down to is just, I'm not saying that, because here's the thing. You can't change art, okay? This is a story that they wanted to tell. This is how they wanted to go with the story. But at the same time, though, it could have been done better. A lot better. And the one thing I would have done differently is if at the very end of the game, Abby gets herself killed protecting Ellie. How much better would that be, huh? Like Ellie is choking Abby, and then Lev shoots her with an arrow, and then she lets go of Abby. Lev's about to shoot Ellie again, but then Abby jumps in front of the arrow, hits her right in the head, and she dies. And then Ellie's like, you saved me? I was trying to kill you. But then Ellie realizes that she has turned into a monster. She has turned into the bad guy. She reflects. She looks back and sees the house that she murdered everyone in. And Ellie is just content now with, I wanted to get revenge, and in return, I lost everything. I lost myself. Which was, to me, is the main moral of the entire game. If I ever were to lose you, I surely lose myself. And if that's what they were going for, they succeeded. So, in conclusion, I know how long this video is, I'll try and wrap this up. But in conclusion, the gameplay in part 2 is fantastic, but the story sucks. I do not like the story at all. It's like there's parts of the story that I like, there's aspects of the story I like, but as a whole, I would give it like a D. A D. Not an F, a D plus maybe. Because I hate the fact that they give us, they're like, hey guys, you want this, right? This scene with Ellie and Joel at the museum in the astronaut area, you wanted that, right? Well, here you go, a very small 10-minute moment with Joel and Ellie, because that's what you wanted, right? So here you go. I hate that. It's the best scene in the entire game. Every scene with Joel and Ellie is the best the game has to offer, but there's only 2 scenes. Well, 3 scenes really at the very end, and I'm just like, that's it. The scene with Ellie and Joel in the museum is such pandering that is almost insulting to me. To me, it feels like they're patting us on the head, giving us treats like, here you go. You want this scene with Ellie and Joel? Oh, this beautiful, touching moment with Ellie and Joel. You wanted that? Here you go, and that's it. I hate that, man. It's like, I pretty much, like, hate playing that scene because it's so good. Knowing how the rest of the game is. The entirety of the game, I am sad, I am upset, I'm depressed, and just overall unhappy. But that one section of the game makes me happy, but it makes me even more sad knowing how everything ends for these 2 characters. It's like, Joel, this is what we were excited for. This right here, Joel and Ellie, for 7 years. But instead, Abby gets all the attention. Abby is the star of the game. We were looking forward to these characters, but you focus on this character instead. And just to add salt to the wound, you force us to have this character that we don't care about kill the characters that we care about. That is why people hate the game so much. I'm just like, if you're going to introduce a new character, do it in a better way. Like, after I finished The Last of Us Part 2, I never once thought about Abby. I was never like, oh, I wonder how Abby's doing. I wonder how Abby's surviving. No, because I don't care about Abby. I like her more than Ellie, yes, in this game. But I will always be Team Ellie. I will always be Team Ellie. I'm thinking to myself, how's Ellie doing? Will Ellie get her girlfriend back? Will she go back to her town? Like, what's Ellie doing now? That is where I stand with The Last of Us Part 2. I'm not saying it's a bad game. This is the 3rd best game of 2020. Number 1 being Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, and this. These 3 games are the best of 2020 has to offer. But this winning game of the year, best narrative, best direction, hell no, man. Hell no. I disagree with that 100%. In terms of story, The Last of Us Part 2 fails. In terms of story. The whole flashback scenes, I hate the flashbacks, man. And the fact that we have to sit through 2 different characters' flashbacks, I hate that. Like, I went into this game knowing that there's no way in hell it'll surpass or be better than Part 1, but I was expecting, like, a standard story, to be honest. And this is, like, below standard for me. The gameplay is fantastic. Voice acting is fantastic. Graphics could be better in some areas. But overall, like, no. I'm like, right in the middle. I don't hate the game, but I don't love it either. I'm, like, right in the middle. I have a lot of issues with this game. But I cannot deny how good some things about the game is. So if they ever make a part 3, which I'm sure they will, I hope Abby's not in the game. I feel like she will. I feel like Tommy would be a better playable character. But who knows, man. It's just, I am disappointed, pretty much. Because I was so, my anticipation for this game was super high, man. And for me to play it as hyped as I was and come out feeling meh, then I play Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, and they're amazing games. They shit on this game, man. They really do, but the game-winning game of the year, do not agree with. Winning all those awards, do not agree with. And I feel like here's the thing though, if you did like this game, good for you. Congratulations, I am happy for you, okay? I wish I could enjoy the game like you do, but I just can't, man. I tried, I genuinely did try, but I just can't. And trust me when I say, how I am about the game is a lot nicer to how everybody else is with the game. I do feel like the hate for the game was a bit over-exaggerated. Sending the actors death threats and stuff, hell no. That is below the belt, man. No, it's just, there's a reason why, though, you know? A lot of the anger is justified when you have the balls to do what you did in this game, not just with killing Joel, just the other choices they made in the game. People are going to get angry. Like, they should have expected this. So it's like, when you kill these characters that we love so much, and you kill them in a very disrespectful way, a very poorly executed way, what do you expect is going to happen? Of course we're going to get angry. So, that being said, just to wrap this up, The Last of Us Part 2 is the most disappointing game for me ever. It is the most subpar game I've ever experienced in my life. It is, part 1 to me is a masterpiece. And this is, I don't know. I just don't recognize it anymore.